I specialize in buying from those landlords, mom and pop shops that own 10 to 20 properties and buy the entire portfolio from them. And then I do what's called the portfolio BRRRR, which is you take the good, the bad, and the ugly from them, right? Every portfolio has good, bad, and ugly, and you just agree to buy it all. And then it's my problem to fix. I fix their problem. And because of that, I usually get rewarded and find some off-market and good deals.
Do you like things that are challenging? If you're an entrepreneur, you better love a challenge. And you better be looking for a challenge. I hope you're looking to grow personally. And if that's the case, then you are looking for challenging things. That's what stretches you, right? It's that struggle that creates character and helps you to grow as fast as possible. Well, you're going to hear our guest today talk about just that and how he applied it to his business model. I love this story, and you're going to hear how much I enjoy it during the interview, but how he applied this to his real estate business and how he's changed his strategy numerous times because he is looking for the next challenge and to grow himself personally. But it's a very unique business model that I feel like could be also applied to almost any asset class. So if whether you are an active or passive investor, I think you're going to learn a lot and you're going to enjoy our show today from Omni Casey, AKA Omni, the real estate guy. He's a real estate investor, broker, coach, author. He runs a family investment business with his wife and 3 kids called New Leaf Redevelopers, where they typically buy 20 to 30 properties a year. He's the author of The Cash Flow Breakfast Club, which is both a story and a manual that shows how anyone can follow very simple steps to obtain financial freedom through passive income for life much sooner than most people would expect. You're going to hear him talk about that as well. And he makes it sound simple enough that, man, you can do it. You can do it. If you're listening to this and you are wondering, or maybe you just feel like it's too challenging or that's for somebody else, I hope you're encouraged by today's show. Amna, welcome to the show. Honored to meet you. And just talking to you a little bit before we got started, I love the way you think about even business growth and your strategy and how that's changed. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. I know that that is it almost doesn't matter what business you're in. You need that type of mentality, and so I know it's going to be so helpful to the listeners and myself. Give them a little more about yourself, your business, and let's jump into that strategy.
Sure. Thank you, Whitney. Honored to be here. Excited. I love the show. You put out some great content for your listeners here, and I'm proud to be a part of it today. Yeah, I'm an investor like many people, and I straddle the line between active and passive investing. And over the years, I've gone in between those and got to the point where I was like, all right, I'm going to be completely passive. And then I got a little bored and I got 3 younger kids, and they've kind of motivated me to get more active in the investing side, primarily so I could be an example to show them and give them the knowledge and skill sets to do that. Started my real estate career in Hawaii, where I'm from, became an investor, became an agent and broker as well. So I dove headfirst into real estate. And so it wasn't just my passive income, it was my active income for the last 20 years. And it's been great. And I've evolved my strategy of how I invest over the years. I started out with condos, condo-tail strategies, and I've kind of slowly gone through the fix and flip, the wholesaling, the buy and hold short-term, the long-term rentals. And now I'm primarily focusing on purchasing portfolios, trying to make it easier for landlords that are just tired, looking to exit. And I specialize in buying from those landlords, mom and pop shops that own 10 to 20 properties and buy the entire portfolio from them. And then I do what's called the portfolio BRRRR, which is you take the good, the bad, and the ugly from them, right? Every portfolio has good, bad, and ugly, and you just agree to buy it all. And then it's my problem to fix. I fix their problem. And because of that, I usually get rewarded and find some off-market and good deals. And it's challenging. And I think that's why I focus. And I do like to focus on what's difficult. And the moment that becomes easy, I'm probably going to find a different strategy to focus on.
Awesome. Well, there's a couple things there. I just feel like that strategy, both of those, I almost feel like it's 2 different strategies there that I want to highlight a little bit. Like your a portfolio BRRRR, there's numerous things around that I feel like we could apply to most real estate asset classes, right? And your strategy behind that, but also just the way, like you just said, you're going to focus on what is difficult. Let's talk about that for a couple of minutes, because I feel like that's so important when starting any business and just personal growth. Which is paramount, I feel like. But what does that mean to you? You're going to focus on what is difficult, because that just sounds difficult. Like that doesn't sound like the easy thing, that most people would want to do.
Sure. I think most people chase easy and understandably so. Most people don't like to be uncomfortable. And I'm not saying I like to be uncomfortable, but I do know when I am comfortable, it doesn't get me anywhere. And I need to push myself just beyond my level of comfort. And I get asked that question all the time. My wife asked me that. Why are you doing that? My agents that I work with, why are you doing that? And because I want to push myself. I want to grow. And I think, I'm a builder at heart and I'm always trying to build something new, something bigger, something exciting. And, once you master that thing, it becomes a little stale for you, but probably more so on the competitive side. If it's too easy and it's something that can be automated, it's going to get flooded in the market by everyone and everyone's going to start doing it. And then the value of that investment or the value of that service drops drastically. The more people, the lower the barrier to the entry. So I figure out if I try something hard or learn how to do something really hard, my competition is minimal for the time being, and keep evolving to try and work to find that lower hanging fruit on the difficult scale.
Can you give us maybe a recent example of how you've used this or applied this and what the result was?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, most of my acquisitions are I purchased 46 properties last year, and most of those were in several big portfolios. And the easy thing is I'm established with great property managers. I don't manage anything myself, so I hire really good teams in various areas to be my property manager. And I let them know this is what I'm looking to do. If any of your other clients are looking to exit, any of them are getting nervous about the market or just are tired, really what it comes down to is they're just tired, mom and pop landlords. Maybe they've held their properties for 30 something years and their depreciation value is no longer there. So the return's not as good as it was in the first 27 and a half years. I'd let my property managers know and say, if you bring them to me, I will treat your clients fairly, make sure that they're happy. But most importantly, you're going to keep that entire portfolio with you. If they sell it to anyone else, there's like a 70% chance that you lose that entire portfolio to another property manager or someone else, right? So my property managers are highly incentivized because they know that if they bring me something, it's staying with them. And so one of our last portfolios was a 14 property portfolio. It ranged from a vacant lot to 2 single family homes to a few small multifamily properties between 2 and 4 units and a mid-sized property as well. It's just kind of a collection of what this owner who has recently moved out of state and has been trying to take care of it. He had a property manager in place, but kind of just still, felt the stress of being remote. Like he was a very hands-on landlord for most of his career, switched to a property manager, and he is going through the anxiety of not being able to be hands-on. So he was really miserable. And he said, they were looking just for an exit at that point. The problem was at some point, all their properties were paid off. They got a loan and cross-collateralized the loan, and it was across their entire portfolio. And when they try to sell one property, that became an issue with their bank. Their bank says, well, you got to sell the entire portfolio or you got to go through hoops to remove one of those properties. And so their end buyer was very limited. And so I was able to help them by selling all at one time. And out of that portfolio, there were probably 3 properties that I would not have bought. It didn't make sense for my portfolio. There were still decent deals and investments, but I bought them regardless because that was my promise to them. And then one of them we fixed up and we sold, and it was a good single family home for someone to move into. And 2 of them we wholesaled off to other investors that had different strategies to employ, and they're happy with that. And the remainder, we had cash flowing properties, just tenants already in them. And some of them we refinanced right away. And we at our purchase price value. Some of them were doing the actual BRRRR strategy 6 months later, elevating the value through forced appreciation, putting a tenant in there. And now we're able to get more or maybe all of our capital back for that acquisition. So a lot of moving parts, but like one transaction turns into 15 plus transactions. But one, I think it's the easiest for the landlord. And it ends up at the end of the day, we have exactly what we want and we got it for a good price.
It's interesting. There's so many good things that can come out of that type of process. It sounds like anyway. I mean, even the landlord or the previous owner getting what they ultimately wanted as well, right? It's such an easier process for them as opposed to doing all individual sales and just being able to do it all in one purchase contract, correct, right?
Excellent.
And so
Exactly.
what are some challenges or difficulties that you've faced in doing this, the portfolio versus individual deals, or maybe something, that you didn't expect?
Yeah, I think financing in general is always going to be difficult because I am a big believer in using the right type of leverage. To purchase, though, you need liquidity. You typically need to purchase cash. You can get a loan, but those are difficult because I'm going to be in the exact same position that previous landlord was in when I'm trying to dispose of a few properties or refinance at a better rate. My portfolio blanket lender is going to be like, whoa, hold up. We got to talk about that, right? So we typically need to have liquidity to do a cash purchase. And then that's outlaying a lot of cash. And we got to say, all right, we need to have a very systematic approach to pull our equity back out of that property through individual refinances. And in a market like this, when the rates are going up, right? So you might have properties where it's not returning as much as you thought, or you might leave it in there a little bit longer because you don't want to lock in a 30-year fixed at, 6%, interest rate where you were getting, 4.5% a few months ago.
Awesome. What about finding like portfolio deals versus, single deals?
It's actually easier than you would think. You just start telling people that's what I've been doing and that's what you focus on. A couple of years ago, big believer in just telling the world, here's what we do. So last year, we typically do 5, 10, 15 deals a year. And when I say we, my wife and I have a small investment company. So it's a family company and my 3 kids. So that's what we were doing. And last year, I just wanted to stretch myself. I said, you know what? I was kind of getting bored or maybe I want to prove that even in a market where deals are hard to come by, I do a lot of coaching and training at a meetup that I run. And that's the biggest complaint. Where do you find the deals? Where do you find the deals? And I just wanted to say, hey, you can stretch yourself if you just tell the world what you want and you tell everyone. So I started to tell everyone, I'm going to do 52 properties this year. I'm going to buy 52 properties. And I went on Bigger Pockets and I said, I'm going to buy 52 properties. And I told the world I'm going to buy 52 properties. I didn't buy 52 properties. I bought 46 properties, but there's no way I would have hit 46 if I wasn't telling everyone I wanted to do that. And beyond, I'm going to buy 52 properties, I started to tell exactly, here's what I'm looking for. I don't want 1 or 2 properties. If you have a landlord that's having a hard time, that needs help, here's what we do. Here's the how we can help them. And it's always a mutual win-win. And now all the investors I'm connected with, a big network, I'm not really competing with any of them. So really, it's the other investors, it's the other real estate agents and the property managers coming to me saying, hey, this is something that I can't take down, but I heard you on this episode, or I heard you post this on social media. So the deals come to you. And then it's reminding each of your rockstar property managers that you have a portfolio with, tell them, here's what I'm looking for. And you remind them. And that's kind of where all the deals came from.
That's interesting. I love that goal too, and putting it out there. That helps hold you accountable.
Exactly.
Right? It's just like, if you tell the world you're going to lose 10 pounds, you're probably going to lose 10 pounds, but if you don't, then you're probably not going to, right? It's like, how committed are you? And you are obviously very committed. If you think about, if you'd have told everybody, the world that you were going to buy, 25 properties, you might have got to 20 and thought, okay, I've done it, right? And slowed down mentally.
Exactly.
But no, that's incredible. I'd love to hear what's the next challenge or strategy change for you that you see coming, or are you like in this right now? And it's like, no, this is still challenging. How do you see the next thing coming?
It's been several years I've been doing this strategy, and I do feel like it is, I'm not going to say autopilot. It is work, but we have a good system in place and good teams in place. And so I'm always looking to grow and build something a little bit bigger. I took on the personal challenge of writing a book a couple years ago, and got distracted and really couldn't publish it. And it really wasn't until this year that I was able to. I think next week is actually when it comes out. It's the Cash Flow Breakfast Club book. And the reason I did that was one of my personal give back goals is to last year as well, was to help 52 people buy their first investment property and start their path to financial freedom, and which I was able to help a lot of people, but that's overwhelming on time. And so realizing that I put all the lessons that I would normally do in my coaching sessions in the book and just say, here's what it is. Here's what I'm telling you. Here's what I follow step by step to achieve financial freedom or to achieve this level of passive income. You put it in the book, and I'm excited about that. So that's been a big weight off my shoulder to actually get that published, so that now I can hopefully share that with more people. And then now I'm looking at, the next different types of development projects, much bigger than the regular residential portfolios.
I wonder, as you have pursued different, new challenging things, And again, I think it's just like a way of life. If you're an entrepreneur, almost, right? Like you have to be putting yourself out there and being uncomfortable, like you talked about, because you know that's where growth comes from. Like we all know that, but it's not comfortable, so we don't like it, maybe. But once you realize that that's the way it is, you almost grow to desire it, right? And it sounds like that's what you have done. And I had to really teach myself to do that, and still teaching, right?
Sure.
By speaking to myself daily to do those things. But how have you learned to really to educate yourself on like new challenging things? I wonder if you've like created, or if you have some type of system to say, you know what, there's this new thing I'm gonna pursue. It's gonna be challenging. Here's what I need to do to figure this out.
Yeah, I think we're in a world, especially in real estate, where we truly are blessed. When I started 20 years ago, we didn't have the resources that we have now, or at least they weren't easy enough to find. And you had to like go talk to. When I started real estate, it kind of felt like I was embarrassed. Personally, I never told anyone I was an investor for a very long time. It kind of felt like it wasn't cool to be an investor at that point. And obviously right now, everyone wants to learn it. And there's great shows like this one and many other books and shows and mentors out there willing to just share knowledge and really give it away for free. So I do consume a lot of podcasts. Yours is one of them. There's several great ones out there. I read almost every real estate investor book. Not to say everything is gospel out there, but you start with feeding your mind with the ideas. You get to kind of formulate what you want to do from there. There's no one right way to be financially free. There are so many great ways to be financially free. You can take a much more active approach. You can take a much more passive approach, and it's going to be based on your life design. And so I think what I've become really good at is taking information and filtering through and kind of putting it on. I'm a spreadsheet guy. So I have so many spreadsheets for calculators to help me analyze and make decisions. And so kind of put things in perspective in terms of numbers or projections, and say, if I follow this path, that means this is what the projection should look like. Or if I follow this path, then there's a high chance it's going to lead out this way. One thing that I have found helpful over the last few years in terms of coaching newer investors, we talk about financial freedom quite a bit, right? We talk about, whether it's in small residential or syndications, right? The goal is some sort of freedom or increasing that wealth. And sometimes that's such a big word, and it gets thrown around a lot. It's hard to really connect to what that actually means. Like, what does it mean to be financially free? And so I started to chop it up in smaller pieces, because in reality, if someone's starting out and they're buying a small rental property that's going to cash flow $500 a month, they're like, well, that's not freedom, right? So $500 is not actually going to change my life, but what does that mean for me? So it's really, I go through the exercise and help them understand what that passive income actually means to them in bought back time or freed time. So in high level, the average, American, let's just say $50,000 a year income, right? And so $50,000 a year breaks down to $25 an hour, roughly. And so we start to say, okay, how much do you value your time? And I say, well, here's what your employer values your time at. So that is what the value is right now. And at some point that might be different, but let's say your time is $25 an hour of value. How do you buy as much of that back? How do you not have to commit to, a certain amount of hours, certain amount of years of life of doing that? And if you take a $500 a month passive income from a rental property, you break that down, run some quick numbers. That basically means that it comes down to about 2.5 days that you bought in every single month. And it comes down to about 30 days in a year. And over a 10-year period, that's like 1 year of free time from a $500 a month rental if you're at a $50,000 a year income. So it's understanding, all right, I just bought a year of my life with that one small rental. Can I buy another year of my life with another small rental? Because those are big things to save up for, right? But you can do that. You could probably buy one a year if you really focused on it, and you're just slowly stacking up the freedom. Whether you're taking the freedom now or you're taking the freedom later, it's working towards that and understanding what that payoff actually is, in the future.
Love that. Just breaking down the hours, making it, like really opening up the dynamics to understand, hey, this is accomplishable, right? I could do that. I could make that happen. And almost developing that plan like you just laid out. Really, I heard a guy talk not too long ago, and he was talking about how, the average person wastes like 4 to 6 hours a day on whether it's TV or, random YouTube, videos that aren't anything that's helping them whatsoever. It's just this random time that they're spending or wasting. And he did the math, but it was like, it added up to half the working hours of a year. I mean, you think about, how many hours, if you did 4 to 6 hours a day, well, that's pretty easy. If you're working an 8-hour day and it's 4 hours a day, you're wasting, that's half your working year, weeks in a year that you're wasting. So I love your focus on that and helping break that down for just anybody to be able to think through. Right. And so, since you love the challenge and moving to the next thing, you mentioned like you did fix and flip, wholesaling, buy and hold, now your portfolio purchases, knowing what you know now and doing those different things. And even maybe you see something, coming in the future, what would you have done differently? Would you have taken that path? It would be like, what? No, I would have started with portfolio, or I would have started with, I don't know, whatever, something different.
That's a great question. I believe everyone needs struggle. If you just give someone the answer of here's what you get to there, it's not the same. So if I went back and said, hey, just start here, I don't think it would be the same, because I think I needed every failure. I needed every struggle. That speaks to my parenting skills. Like, I love it when my kids struggle. I don't want to give them everything. I want them to struggle, because if they just are handed it, then they didn't build that muscle that they needed to get there, right? So I'd rather give them the knowledge and the struggle to be able to become financially free than just give them the money and the passive income of financial freedom. So I don't know if I would change anything. I mean, there are some painful things that happened throughout my career, and losses that happened, and lessons learned, but I would not have learned those lessons if not. I probably would have challenged myself to reinvent myself at a much faster pace. I kind of took the approach of every 10 years, I reinvented myself. Every 10 years, I retired and got to the level of passivity and said, okay, what am I building next? And I probably would have fast tracked that to every 5 years if I had to do that, because that 10-year time frame really forced me to say, all right, this is the end of my life, this 10-year life. I need to accomplish something by that time frame, have something to show for it, and then start to build something bigger or something different on top of that. So I probably would have fast tracked how often I tried to reinvent myself.
Incredible. Ultimately, you would have looked for those challenges faster. Right.
Yes, absolutely.
I love that. And I heard somebody say too, it's like the struggle is what builds character.
Yep, that's exactly it. That's exactly it.
I love how you applied that to your kids as well.
If there's one thing my wife and I don't agree on, it's because she loves our kids. And so she wants to give them everything and make sure that they have no struggle ever in life. Right. And I love my kids. And because of that, I want to make sure that they struggle in life and they learn. So we both love our kids tremendously. It's just, we have a different view of what that actually means for them.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your transparency around that as well. I'd rather them struggle on small things, right? And learn those lessons, especially while you're there to oversee as well. But what do you see as like preparing for a downturn, or, when you're buying a portfolio, give us a couple of things that like, I want to make sure this and this happens, or this is what I'm looking at to ensure, hey, if the worst thing happens over the next 6 to 12 months, I'm prepared for it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are thinking about this as of late, because we've been in such an upswing and still are in a great market. But now we're seeing like close to 10% inflation. We're nearing that, right? We're seeing 6-7% interest rates. I wouldn't be surprised if we got the double-digit interest rates at some point. And really, it comes down to how do we pre-think that out? And I'm there's 3 things that helped me throughout my career: mentors, coaches, and then masterminds, right? They all play a different role. And I surround myself with some amazing agents and investors, and we talk through hypotheticals all the time in the mastermind. And we just say, okay, hypothetically, so we already talked about what if it was 15% inflation? What if it was 15% in interest rates? That's our new reality. What do we do, right? And so, and we kind of throw out these astronomical scenarios, but now we realize, okay, if that's the new reality, everyone lives with that new reality. How do we still survive in that reality? And it usually comes down to making sure that you're prepared, making sure you have the right amount of reserves, right? So I love leverage, but I love responsible leverage in terms of making sure it's towards something that typically cash flows that can support the leverage. I don't love when people take on debt on a highly appreciating asset, but they're servicing that debt out of pocket because it doesn't cover itself. But they're saying, well, with everything going up at 15 or 20% rate like it is right now, I'm clearly going to cash out in a couple of years. We remember what happened the last time, people thought that. And not to say we're in the same boat, but it is a highly risky scenario. So as it gets riskier and as it gets more uncertain, if you start investing in things that are much more certain, like cash flow, like long-term rental growth, whether it's on the active side or in a passive syndication, that really, we all know that, if the market values go up or they go down, there's not much we can do to control that, but the rent values do tend to, if you're buying in the right areas and with the right intentions in place, they tend to continue to be stable and continue to go up regardless of the market that we're in.
Yeah, love that. I appreciate the detail. Are you elaborating as well? It's what people want to hear. Like, what's he doing to prepare? Because they're all worried about it also. What are the most important metrics that you track?
I love that. Not just an investor side. I'm a broker as well. So I lead about 100 agent real estate office here. And so we talk about numbers and metrics all the time, not just from the ownership side of things, but from the agent side of things. And really sales, from a day to day, week to week, goes up and goes down, and tracking those trends is important. But ultimately, that interest rate and that inflation, which we've talked about already, is probably going to have a bigger impact than anything we've seen. And so I've been tracking that drastically over the last few years. I used to have a training called what if, crazy hypothetical situation. What if inflation was at 5%? That was my crazy scenario 2 years ago in this training. That was my most requested training, right? We went through what does that mean for your dollar and your value. And then over the last 2 years, I've had to revamp that probably 8 times every time it went up. And so now it's what if it's at 10%? Because we're actually at 8.25 or whatever it is. And so how do we deal with that, right? And so that does affect our decision because, that's pushing things up, but that's obviously causing some things to counteract, like interest rates as well. Inflation, because the cost of materials, cost of labor directly affects us on every single transaction. A renovation that I just completed last week was probably 30% more than something I completed a year ago on a very similar size home. Materials, same type of finishes, but materials and labor. So just understanding how to raise that. And as long as you're factoring that in and the numbers make sense from the beginning, then you can protect yourself. But it's being blindsided by, I thought it was going to be 80,000 and it was 150,000. That can mess up your numbers.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, appreciate you elaborating on that as well. What about, what are some daily habits that you have that you're disciplined about that have helped you achieve this level of success?
It's funny. You talked about what many people just kind of get sucked into social media, sucked into scrolling and things like hours and hours a day of just wasted time. When I cut out a lot of wasted time several years ago, I'm very limited on my news consumption. I got, feeds sent to me on very specific teams. I don't need to know what's going on with Johnny Depp or anything else like that. My wife, she updates me, right? So I don't need to know, I will find out about it. And just my consumption in general, I use social media as a tool in terms of, connecting and marketing. But in terms of daily consumption, I think it's too addictive for most people to be productive on that. And then I implemented several years ago, what's called the Miracle Morning. Hal Elrod has a great book out there for people wanting to learn about it. And it's all it is turning your morning into a more productive morning. I've never been a morning person, but that has been my superpower. I've been able to carve out states of flow every morning, whether it's 1 hour or whether it's 3 hours, get more productivity in that 1 or 3 hours before anyone really wakes up. And then I will the rest of the day, maybe even the rest of the week. My big goal to hit 52 properties. We bought 46 properties last year. That was all in the morning. Literally, I still run a brokerage. I spend a lot of time helping my agents do their business. So I'm not a full-time investor out there doing nothing but investing. I was able to do that with just a few hours every morning, analyzing deals, and then I'm done for the day. But it was enough to get me to that level.
Incredible. I like how you highlighted you limit your consumption of news and social media. I mean, it's just a must. It's so addictive, right? But even worse than that, and I just wanted to mention this because I think it's so important. It's what it does to your mind, right? It can just depress you. I just hear so many people talking about it, and I'm guilty of that at times as well. It's you see too much of the certain kinds of news or even certain people on YouTube that you feel like's bringing you maybe good content. However, man, think about how you feel after you listen to that thing.
Yeah.
And are you ready to go attack the next thing, in your business? Or are you just depressed. And social media can have the same effect. And so I think I love how you limit that. And then also the miracle morning, could not agree more. The morning is my most productive time by far. And when I changed, actually it was that book made me really think about my time, how I'm spending that time in the morning and wasting it, hitting snooze or doing nothing, productive. It changed so much for me. If you could pick one thing though, that's contributed to your success, what would that be?
I think I've surrounded myself with really good people, good mentors, coaches, and I throw them all together, mentors, coaches, and masterminds. And I've known that I've never been the smartest person in the room. I've never known everything. I have found success from an early age, but I just always knew that one, I could have easily, had that equally as much, failure. So I always tried to figure out, no matter what level I'm at, find someone that's ahead of me and just talk to them, connect with them, try to add value to them, in ways that actually make sense. So we have a mutually beneficial relationship. So although I mentor and I coach a lot of people, I still have mentors and I still have coaches and always looking for who that next mentor and coach is.
Love that. What about how do you like to give back?
Giving back, obviously there's financial, try to separate a certain amount of our cash flow doors. And there's a percentage of them that actually do nothing but go towards giving back to charities and causes that are important to us. But I'm a big believer in education as well. And the education that I didn't have necessarily growing up, we didn't have this financial education. I feel lucky I stumbled across it, right? And feel lucky that I went down this path. I could have easily have not gone down the path and been in a completely different situation. So really, I think the best way that I give back is I try to contribute as much time as possible, teaching people about real estate investing, teaching people about financial education. So I call myself a coach. It's not a business. I don't charge anything for that, but I really want to put people on a path to completely change the trajectory of their life and their generations to come, because now they have a different understanding, or they have a different mindset around money. And whether it's all in real estate or not, it's up to them. That's clearly my specialty. But kind of changing mindsets is I think, my favorite pastime as well.
I'm so thankful for the interview and your time today. I hope that the listeners will look at challenges differently because of your story and how you have highlighted that today, and really the benefits of looking for the next challenge, even through the portfolio BRRRR model. I just think that's an incredible model as well that we could apply to so many different asset classes, as well. And the pros of that model, we could use as well, even in large multifamily deals. So grateful for that and encouraging us to look for the next challenge and really the personal growth, right, that happens behind that. How can the listeners get in touch with you and learn more about you?
Sure. I'm on social media. Omni, the investor guy, is my handle just about everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, and my website is omnitheinvestorguy.com. I'm fairly simple to get a hold of. My cell phone's on most of those sites. You can text me. I'm on the East Coast, so just be conscious of the time, but I do my best to try and respond to everyone.
Thank you for being a loyal listener of the show. Please subscribe and share it with your friends. We want to help you become the passive investor you've always wanted to become, but also the operator you've always wanted to become. We want to be the number one resource for your real estate investing journey. But go to lifebridgecapital.com where you can start investing in real estate today.